Good afternoon. Well, my name is May Gashlik, the founder and director of the China Guiding Cases Project. Welcome to the information section of the International Writing Contest that we are organizing. I'm particularly happy today because normally only I speak at our events, but today I finally have a chance to introduce a few core members of the project. And let me actually say a few words about these core members. First of all, Jennifer Ingram. Jennifer, would you like to come here? Yes. Then, after my brief introduction, each of them will say a few more words about their responsibility, their experience with the project, and then we talked about the writing contest. Jen actually graduated from Stanford Law School in 2012. I was very fortunate because when I decided to found the project, Jen actually volunteered immediately. So this project would not actually have existed had we not received assistance from her. So I basically consider Jennifer Ingram as the co-founder of the project. And then now Jen is primarily in charge of our Belt and Road series. She will say a few more words about that. Then the next core member, Dimitri. Dimitri Phillips. Dimitri graduated 1 year after Jen from Stanford Law School, slightly different. Jen actually volunteered immediately. He observed for a while. Okay, that's annoying. But actually, this is if you enjoy the English versions of the guiding cases, and you're really actually surprised by the high quality of the translations, well, a lot of credit actually should be given to him. It's actually why he uses linguistic skills, and we finalize all the English versions. And I have to say that as a result, these translations are really just pieces of artwork. And we're very proud of that. And I cannot thank him enough for playing such an important role. He will actually talk more about his work, okay? Then Johan, okay? Johan, come here. Johan, yes. Johan. Well, you're probably actually very impressed by what happened over the past year because we didn't really do that much marketing until last year, like social media, like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. And then we have our own project page on LinkedIn. Well, it's actually because before Johan came to join the team, we didn't have anyone specialized in marketing. When I studied MBA, I focused on finance, accounting, statistics, and I didn't pay much attention to marketing. Johan proved me wrong. Okay, so thanks to her participation in the project, we really have taken off, and she has done tremendous work to, bring this project to the global audience. So Johan will also say a few words about her work. And finally, Nick, okay? Nick, actually, classmate of Jennifer Ingram. And then when we actually talked about, we constantly think about how to expand our project, okay? So then we always know that eventually it's important to actually have some kind of comparison between China's cases and cases from other jurisdictions. So when Jen actually told me about Nick, the exciting thing he's doing, I said, of course we have to invite, okay, Nick, so then we can have some collaboration. I leave it to Nick to explain what kind of collaboration we have now. So now I welcome each of you to actually say a few more words about your work before we talk about the writing context. Jen?
Hi. So my name is Jennifer. I focus primarily on the Belt and Road series, which is a relatively new initiative of the China Guiding Cases project that was launched in November of last year. So we have a couple of different products that we've been releasing thus far. I'll just highlight them. We have the Belt and Road cases, which are cases that are released by the Supreme People's Court. There's only been 8 thus far, but that highlight the resolution of disputes by Chinese courts related to the Belt and Road. We also have Belt and Road texts, which are the cooperation agreements, legal cooperation and other kinds of cooperation agreements signed between China and countries that are interested in the initiative. and we have some really exciting plans for the future about continuing to develop case studies and different products highlighting what's actually going on the ground and the different kinds of projects that make up this worldwide initiative.
Dimitri.
Hi, so I'm Dimitri, and as May pointed out, I'm a little slow to act sometimes. Actually, it was several months, I think, before I actually got into this, after sitting in a session or two like this, and actually after taking her class as well. And I was even also very slow to start very small things. You know, May, though, the thing is that she's really good at reading people, at figuring out what their strengths are, what their skills are, and also at managing them, which is actually a real treat because she figured out some things about myself that I didn't realize myself. So she's just like, oh, Dimitri, why don't you just take and edit this small little document a little bit? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. That just means, just put some markings on it and change a comma or something. And I did that, and then I gave it back to May and to the CGCP. And when I saw what then came back to me from that and what the process ultimately accomplished, I was really amazed, because I saw how much time and energy and intellectual and ethical rigor goes into producing everything that the CGCP does, and especially how much May puts into everything. Just even though she's in charge of the whole thing and supervises hundreds of people literally, she gives you so much attention and so much time for every person and for every single little task. So then how could I not myself pay attention and put everything I could into it? Nobody on the team lets anybody else down. We all put in 110%, and so the product can be a good product at the end of the day. And I mean, that's what you want more than anything. So, I wanted to be a part of that. At the same time, I just want to say a couple other things about the CGCP, and that's that it has a really big time horizon and just outlook on how to affect change in China. But it also has a lot of dynamism. We're constantly changing, innovating new products, such as what we're going to be talking about more today, the China Cases Insights, and also this writing contest. We're constantly adapting to the situation, adopting new ways of doing things, and so it's always really fun and really interesting that way. And then finally, at the same time, there's a lot of flexibility. Flexibility in where you work from and when you work and how much you work. I don't think either Jen or I have permanent homes at this point in time, and haven't for a while. We just move around the world all over, and then we just work from wherever we are. And we have other members just all over the world in dozens of different countries, and people just work when they can. There's always a lot of work in the pipeline, but you can just step in and say, I'm ready to do something, give me the appropriate amount for the appropriate amount of time, and there's always something for you to do. So I guess that's just what I wanted to say about the CGCP, and I hope that you guys do even more than this writing contest if you get the chance. Again, take your time, start out really small, and then at the end of the day, you may end up here all the time, which is really good, especially after you graduated, to come back here all the time.
And I want to add, Dimitri, don't go. I want to add, because we are about to talk about China Cases Insights. Come back. Okay. China Cases Insights. The first issue of China Cases Insights was published last week, together with a piece of commentary contributed by Judge Stein. So the first China Cases Insight written by Judge Walker, 2 federal court judges, very senior, very respected. I just want to highlight the joy that Dimitri and I had, because these 2 judges sent us full versions, right? And then, he spent a day to check all the details, to add his edits. And I spent another day to add mine. In the end, we sent it very quickly back to the 2 judges, and both of them actually accepted almost all of the edits, except a few very minor ones. And that's actually what I try to say. It's a very rewarding experience having 2 senior judges to actually say that some edits we share, because it's just 2 recommendations. They say, this is really indeed better. So it's very exciting. That's the reason why we think that eventually China Cases Insights problem will be our core signature product. And that's the reason why we have this plan to have the writing contest, hoping that we can actually get more people engaged, including students and professionals.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dimitri. Then Johan.
Hi, my name is Johan. I manage social media and all the marketing activities for the CGCP. So on your way in, you probably got a fact sheet that we produce here. And on it, you'll see we are active on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Weibo, and WeChat. So please do follow us on all these platforms and be part of our journey as we continue to grow our project. Thank you.
Typical marketing person, still talk about marketing. Okay, Nick.
Hey everyone. My name is Nick Reid. I'm a Stanford Law graduate from class of 2012 with Jen. I don't work on the China Guiding Cases project, but I've been a fan of it and a follower of it for a lot of years now. I do something similar, but on US case law. We launched a company out of Stanford called Ravel Law. It's a legal analytics and research platform for lawyers. We're currently being used by over 80 law firms and 30 law schools across the country, and we're starting to get use internationally. And so what we do is we use big data algorithms on American case law, machine learning, and natural language processing to find insights in American case law, a lot like what I think the China Guiding Cases project will be doing, is starting to do already and will be doing continuously. So we're really excited about this. It's kind of one of the first little initiatives we could do in collaborating together. In one of these opinions that Mehe just told us about from the judges, there were references to case law in the United States. And I was actually a student of comparative international law when I was here at Stanford. And I think one of the best ways we can understand the law is to look at countries all across the world to see what they're doing and bring it back to our laws and for people from other countries to do the same. And so there was actually a couple of allusions to American cases in these documents that were written by the judges, and we've linked those back to Ravel. One of the cool things that we've done with Ravel is, in collaboration with Harvard Law School, we've created the most comprehensive free case law database for US case law in the world. And so if you want to read a case from today or from 200 years ago that was published by a court in the US, you can come to Ravel and find that case. And now with the project, if you're reading something on this website and there's a mention of a US case, there'll be a link back to Ravel and you can come find it there. And I hope one day we'll have American cases referencing Chinese cases and we'll be linking back to this website from our site.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, May.
Thank you very much, Nick. So this is a very quick overview and introduction of our roles. And then I would like to invite Dimitri and Johan later, okay, to talk about the writing contest. Then we'll open the floor for Q&A, any questions you have about our work, about the writing contest. Dimitri.
Hi again. Missed me? So I think the best way to get started is just to look at what we produced. Hopefully you guys have seen it before, but this is the first China Cases Insight. I think it's kind of pretty. It's also
very pretty.
hopefully it's also useful in substance. The idea
Dimitri,
is...
you have to be close here. In the middle.
Okay, thank you. The idea is that we try to really attract practitioners, business people, lawyers that are practicing law to kind of just from the very first page to get interested in this. We write a very brief takeaway, just less than 100 words, just tell them what this is all about, but also just the real essence, what they can take away from it to help in their practice, what they can also just use as a single line to just tell their colleagues or their clients themselves in order to impress their clients. And then we have the biography of the writer, and this is supposed to be geared very much, again, in the same sense to showing how these particular author, or in some case if it's co-authors, are qualified to write on this particular topic and why somebody should read them. And in this case it's a judge from the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and this is a circuit that's known for its antitrust expertise, so it's not just a respectable judge, but one who's authored a number of important opinions on antitrust. And the subject of this insight is antitrust. So hopefully, even with just those two little things, we've attracted the attention of practitioners to read this insight. And then on top of that, we begin with a sort of summary, a little bit longer than the takeaway, that gives readers, again, sort of the key facts and kind of hints at some of the key conclusions of the piece. There's a couple of ways to do the rundown. Sometimes it's more about just what a particular case's facts are. We'll get into the more details of what each section has to be like when you're writing it. But it can either just be key facts of a case, again, pointing out the ones that are going to be relevant to the analysis later, or it can be larger summary of the context in which the case appears, giving background of laws and regulations, of just the actual factual situation on the ground. And that goes down, you know, and we try to pull out some quotes as well to attract more attention. And then sort of the heart of the insight is the breakdown, which is our way of referring to the analysis. And you know, that goes down, but it's really not that long, even this. We're talking 3,000, 3,500 words. Every sentence has to count. I mean, that's the most important thing about this product, and the most important thing I think you have to bear in mind when you're writing it. And then a really short conclusion as well, just to make sure if they missed everything in the takeaway and the rundown, that they really understand what this is all about at the end. Followed by just a few end notes. We don't want to clutter it too much, including, if you see here, our link back to Ravel, and then some related resources, and that's the end. Hopefully it looks pretty at the end too. We also have it in Chinese, of course. We're going to try to publish them all in both languages when they're relevant to the audience from both places, you know, both speakers, and they usually are. And I just wanted to show you what it looks like first. Now, in terms of the contest and the specifics.
Hold on 1 second, Dimitri. Can you go back to your insights?
The Chinese or the English?
I want to say English is fine. I just want to say a few words. When Judge Walker, when we had this idea, to launch China Cases Insights, we were hoping to have, because it's such important publication, we wanted to become signature publication. We were hoping to find a heavyweight, person to actually write a piece, and then we want to make sure this is such an important guiding case. So the timing is perfect. It's an act of God. So we had the first guiding case on anti-monopoly law. Guiding case number 78. So just published in March. Wow. So it took time actually to translate the case. So when we were almost done with the translation, we were thinking about we need to find a person to write a piece of insights on this important guiding case. And then we were just so lucky. Well, because we didn't yet even finish the translation. So Judge Walk had no idea, because he doesn't read Chinese. He had no idea what this case is about. He just actually listened to me, my brief version, to summarize the ideas. And I said, well, I really need to. I need to, And he said, yes. So this is actually just a very good story to illustrate to what extent China Guiding Cases Project has received support from these important judges and other legal players, legal actors. So this is one thing I want to highlight. But if you feel intimidated by such an author, thinking that what's the whole point of talking about submitting your versions of insights, then I just want you to actually rest assured. The second issue of China Cases Insights will be actually authored by two important members of the China Guiding Cases Project. One, Dimitri, together with a Chinese member. Of course, we need a very impressive first issue to impress the audience, but we also want to actually help the audience understand that this is not just by judges, but it's actually publication also, we hope, to engage students, other professionals, and because the whole idea is that you must have enough insights to share with the rest of the world. So this is actually the message I want to emphasize. So don't actually feel intimidated by the quality of this piece. So we will make sure that we'll provide a lot of editorial input to ensure high quality of each publication.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm writing one with a student in Fudan, I think, and it's been really fun. It's been fun co-authoring it. It's obviously better to have two minds. Very often, asking each other questions, always questioning the other one. It's also useful, obviously. I don't speak very well Chinese, so we're writing on a topic that's very extensive, complicated, and also has a lot of regulations and rules. So it's helpful to have a Chinese speaker and somebody on the ground there to find some of these sources and help me understand them. But that's not necessary, of course, either. You can write it with any other partner, or you can write it on your own. It just depends on the topic that you have in mind. it doesn't look, you know, I'm writing it now and I'm pretty close to the final stages of the drafting process, and it really doesn't look anything like this. And this is another thing to bear in mind, you know, when you look at this, you don't need to worry about it. After, you know, you write it, and obviously it's going to be a major feat and accomplishment to write it, there's still going to be a process in which you'll get editorial review of it from editors that understand very well this sort of writing, and then we'll obviously help with you know, putting it into this kind of template and making sure that it all looks good. And that's going to be, you know, an added value to it, and we hope that you'll appreciate that as well. In terms of what writing one really looks like and what you got to do, let me pull down the guidelines here. Or should I say something, or do you want to say something more about the contest generally? And
I think you just focus on group 1, group 2, because, yeah, and then they can
Okay.
read the details later.
okay, well, just very briefly, I mean, I'm sure you read a little bit about this, and that's why you're here, but the writing contest affords authors of these things the opportunity to get published on our website, just like this one is published up there. And we have, how many, like tens of thousands of views every year, or
On the website?
hundreds of thousands.
Yes, well, I don't remember. So our website actually has grown rapidly in terms of number of users, unique users, and the page views. And then actually since the launch of the Belt and Road series in November 2016, all of a sudden expanded our horizon as well, because the other day I checked my LinkedIn connections, some people from Middle East, from Vietnam, and then from Africa, thanking us for putting together the Belt and Road series. So I would say that now it actually really global audience in terms of readership.
Okay, thanks. And of course, in addition to the publication opportunities for the real quality submissions, the very top level submissions, the authors of them will be invited to go to a conference in Beijing next spring and to speak at that conference. It's a really large-scale conference that's also doubling as a sort of training opportunity for lawyers and judges in China and outside of China. It's going to bring together a lot of people from all over the world. I went to a conference like this last fall in Beijing and in Hong Kong. I actually spoke in Hong Kong, but by the way, just going to Beijing and going to the Stanford Center in Beijing, first of all, is phenomenal. I mean, you just have to see this place once in your life. It's amazing what they did there. And then in addition to be witnessing all these people speaking there and to be giving you their insights, you know, judges. We had also the chief judge in charge of the Guiding Cases project there. We had judges from all over China. We had lawyers that took time off work from all over the world, including, you know, big U.S. law firms in New York, to come and speak at the conference. And, you know, I hadn't slept for several days, I remember, at that point, and I also just flown in, so I was really, really drowsy, but I was also really awake because of what I was seeing. And obviously I don't need to mention the networking opportunities are phenomenal. So, you know, it's really a treat to be able to go to a conference like this, and we'll sponsor the top authors to go there and to speak at the conference. Do you want to say something else?
Maybe a few words about why Group 1, Group 2, right? Why we distinguish these two groups. Well, I just want to highlight one thing. We worked very hard to do fundraising. So you think, okay, well, we spend most of the time on publications. Yes, a lot, but half of the time actually on fundraising. And we cannot thank enough our sponsors, major foundation and law firms, etc., for supporting us. So basically, we already actually secure our funding for the conference. And part of that actually allow us to offer travel awards to encourage more Chinese students, lawyers, professors, and also judges to attend the conference. So in terms of funding, we have more, funds available to support local Chinese players to join us. So that's why we actually group them as Group 1. Domestic awards will be issued to these quality submissions, authors of quality submissions. But then we also work hard on the side as well, because we don't want to actually just benefit the domestic Chinese players. We also want to make sure that we can find a way to engage international students. But so far, by comparison, of course, funding for domestic awards, we have more. So, but then we still actually thank the China Fund of the Freeman Spockley Institute at Stanford University to actually give us some money to create some travel awards And then, so then we actually, that's why we have Group 2 to provide opportunities for people like you. So then we may actually have a real representation at the conference. So, Dimitri, do you want to actually talk about something else about?
I just wanted to get a little bit into the details and the tips for the actual mechanics of writing these things. In terms of submitting them, and the guidelines are very simple, just send it in by September 30th, 3,000 to 3,500 words, and you can write it in English or Chinese, and just make sure to specify if you're applying as a Group 1 or Group 2. And in terms of writing these things, as you see, we have these specific sections, and we have specific guidelines for each section. Takeaway is about 100 words. The rundown is about 250 to 500 words. And the rundown, as I mentioned before, has two variations. You can see the slide, right? So if the insight's primarily focused on one or a handful of cases, and it really shouldn't be focused on more than, I don't know, 3, 4, or maybe 5 or 6 cases if they're really, really well connected, then it should cover the details about the facts and results and the reasoning of those cases, which I'm sure you're familiar with, sections within each guiding case. And if it has a little bit more background information, sort of filling in gaps about things that weren't clear perhaps in the guiding case itself, that's all right, but really should just stick to the facts and results and the reasoning of the cases. Whereas if the insight is primarily focused on issues related to a certain case, but not necessarily only on that case, but things that arise from that case, then the rundown should provide a synopsis of the insight, making sure to touch on those different tangential or related issues. And then in that case, just remember to include a very simple, straightforward other section, a brief section, 200, 300, 400 words tops, on just the facts and the results and reasoning of that one case that you're going to be using as a sort of springboard to talk about the other issues. And then, as I mentioned, the heart of the insight is this breakdown, 1,000 to 2,000 words. I mean, that's a wide berth, and we just really encourage you to be as concise and crisp as you can in your writing, but at the same time, don't be overly dense. Writing clear, simple, yet powerful, and easy to read sentences and prose overall is obviously, well, there's a premium on it in the practice of law. I've practiced law in a big law firm in New York, and I came from a background in philosophy and philology, and even after getting through Stanford Law School, they still told me my prose was way too prolix, and I needed to really simplify it, and I needed to make it both kind of shorter, but also less dense, which for me is difficult to do, because if I'm thinking shorter, then I think I have to fit more in there, but you somehow have to get through and write just the key elements of each thought that you have. And just to give you tips, because that's one of the reasons you guys are here, even a very specific thing that I find is helpful, because I'm working on one of these now as well, and I've had to do this many times. You write a sentence, you're trying to follow these guidelines and write simple, clear, crisp sentences, and you think you've done it really well. Maybe you tweak it a little bit as well, you edit it yourself, and you're thinking this is good and it can't get better. And that may be right, but just turn the paper around and with the same thought in mind, write a completely different sentence, a different structure. Just do it again, then edit that one, then take a look at the two and see what you think. Maybe one of the two is better, maybe neither of the two work, maybe you have to combine them. But I can't stress enough that we're really looking to attract practitioners here, and they emphasize very much this need to write very simply, write very clear, and convey your message, and don't waste any words. Definitely don't waste any sentences. Just writing random speculations or side thoughts, which, as you can tell from hearing me, is what I do all the time.
May I add one thing?
Please do.
Okay. This is so important. And this is actually the best thing I learned from my experience at Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, a Washington, D.C. based think tank that I used to work for. I think the most important thing is actually that many of us always forget. No one is obligated to read your work. No one. It's up to you to actually explain in 3 short sentences to capture the intention, so then they decide to read on. It's very, very important. The reason why I learned that is because in Washington, D.C., every day, there's so many things going on, and everyone is so busy. And that's another reason why we decided to publish this series, because I was told by many friends in companies, in law firms, they need to learn something very quickly. but then they simply don't have enough time. So we want to actually produce something very insightful, very precise to benefit them, and that's the reason. So, but if you can manage actually to convey your thoughts effectively in very few words, then you win the game.
Right, and another thing that you can do that'll help you understand the kind of writing we're looking for is you can go to our website and you'll see that we have a section on commentaries. And the commentaries have two sort of sections, the China Cases Insights, which is our new ones, and then the old commentaries. And you can go and look at these old commentaries and take a look at the difference in writing. We have a lot of professors writing these old commentaries, you know, waxing eloquently about philosophical underpinnings of different legal doctrines, throwing out a lot of open-ended questions, just ruminating generally. And that's really helpful in many ways, and that's why we have these on here. And you know, this is an organization that tries to influence all areas of society, including academics and policymakers who need to consider these things. But for the Insights product, it's not like that. You know, it's very stark, factual sentences giving you information and giving you analysis of that information. It's not really about speculating. So to wrap up, and then you guys can answer questions. The breakdown is supposed to be 1,000 to 2,000 words. Write about the case, because this is China Cases Insight, not China Law Insight. But if necessary, of course, you talk about law, you talk about rules and regulations, you talk about the circumstances. You can also obviously have one case as your focus, but then perhaps something that's done in that case is illustrated in another case, or maybe this case that you're referring to was mentioned or referenced in a subsequent case, and you may want to talk about how it was used in a subsequent case. So perhaps, you know, paragraph 1, 2, 3 paragraphs about 2 or 3 other cases will be helpful in explaining the significance of the particular central case you're talking about. And then you wrap it up with a conclusion, also very short, simple paragraphs, just to, you know, bring the point home and hopefully end in another sentence that will be very memorable and that the practitioners will, you know, take to their colleagues and take to their clients and be very pleased with themselves for just repeating. And then, you know, include an author bio, as I've talked about. So I think that covers sort of what the writing process should be like and what the result will hopefully be like.
Should we open the
Should
floor for
If
Q&A?
nobody else has
Okay.
anything else to add, yeah, we should open the floor
Johan, you
to
can
Q&A.
actually join us.
Okay.
Yeah. No, hold on one second. Well, we open the floor, and then if they don't have any questions, we can actually ask a few. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Actually, I want to start with a comment.
Just 1 second though, please.
Hold on 1 second. Oh, because we have the mic. Because we want. First of all, please be prepared that we are videotaping our information section, and then we'll actually produce the edited version on our website. So then the global audience can have the benefits of getting the information that we just shared with you. So if you don't want to be recorded, don't ask. Okay, questions?
Or let us know.
Or
But
let
this
us
is
know. We edit
also,
out. Okay.
In case you forget what you said, you can just go back to the video and see.
So I just want you to understand. Okay, Elton.
So I will start with a comment. So, talking about comments,
1 second.
it's not on. So how do you turn it on? So, talking about timing, Judge Walker published the first Insights article last Friday, and then news about his former law clerk is all over the internet. So James Comey is his law clerk. Just an interesting comment. So I do have a couple questions, I guess. How many prizes do you plan to award for this first contest?
Okay, this is actually a very good question. We do actually have more funds available, and for Group 1, for domestic awards. So then for the second one, okay, we certainly has a smaller number of awards, and I don't want to specify the number because there's still a big chance for me to raise the funds elsewhere to create more awards. The reason why I say this is not because to make it difficult for you, because I don't want to actually discourage, but at least we hope to have at least 2 Stanford students, okay, to go all the way to Beijing, and then at least maybe 1 or 2 other students or graduates, or young graduates from outside Stanford, if we actually manage to raise more funding. See, that's why it's very important for more international firms and companies to understand that we are doing something very important. And then they are actually willing to donate more money. Then we can actually create more opportunities. So then, based on my experience, CGCP has grown so rapidly. A few months, many things happen. So that's the reason why I don't want to make a conclusive statement to actually cause any confusion or mislead you. But definitely, domestic awards, we do have a lot, available. This is too sharp, okay, from a partner of a leading law firm in Beijing.
And then, are we encouraged to write on one of the guiding cases? I know Judge Walker wrote on the guiding cases number 78.
Thank you. The reason why we call this China Cases Insight is because we don't want to confine ourselves to guiding cases, instead of calling it China Guiding Cases Insight, because there are some important cases up and coming. For example, in terms of Belt and Road, development, there are 8 typical cases chosen, that are related to Belt and Road Initiative. So then if, for example, one member is here, if, for example, you have you have specific insights about one typical case related to Belt and Road, you're more than welcome to actually contribute a piece on that case. Or maybe actually other cases, not even typical cases, not even actually guiding cases, but you think it's actually so representative, it deserves some attention, then you're welcome to submit. And that's the reason why I think that in a way, by publishing this series of publication, we are encouraging more discussion about important cases. Some cases that only guiding case have this legal status, which is de facto binding, Other cases, typical cases, or even very representative, they don't even have this legal status. So only guiding cases have this, so to speak, superior status, because judges are supposed to refer to them in similar education. But then through this publication, we hope to actually engage more people to pay more attention to the development of cases in China. So that's the reason why we decided not to confine ourselves to guiding cases.
Other questions, anybody?
Scott.
Thank you for this fascinating and far-reaching interlingual legal translation, Magnus Opus. I'm curious about how the China Guiding Cases project in English and Chinese will get taught. And I'm asking this from the perspective of developing a Massachusetts Institute of Technology OpenCourseWare online university that plans to be in Chinese and offer law degrees and hire faculty and potentially Stanford law student interns to become faculty. How are these insights being taught already in China? How might they be being taught here in the States?
First of all, thank you, Scott, for your question. First of all, we only published this last Friday. But I have been actually, a few students in my class, China Law and Business, can actually testify one thing. I have actually gradually incorporated guiding cases into my syllabus, because it's actually very interesting to the extent that's actually relevant to other themes that I cover in my class. So for example, in a few weeks, I'm going to talk about anti-monopoly law. Then obviously I will include this piece about the insight number 1 and the guiding case number 78. So that's actually another way where we notice one thing, because actually all of these publications are available for free. And then we welcome everyone to use it. And I hope that actually now you understand how helpful these materials are. And then other professors will also actually use them. And then, we don't want to selfishly say that this is our products. We don't want, no. This is against our purpose. Our purpose is to actually encourage more users, more readers to use our materials, so then we can actually promote understanding of Chinese law. So I would think that the more, and that's the reason why the more actually we, the more we produce insights, especially now we know that actually in regular classes, time is very limited. And that's the value of having insights, very short, relatively short. And then so to have deeper conversation, discussion in the classroom. And that will be the way to go. We understand that traditional commentaries have the limitations to some extent. You can't really expect students to read many pieces of commentaries with that in-depth understanding, but it's very important for other purposes. But for case studies like this, is uniquely important and helpful. So that's why I personally think that there will be actually bright future for this type of legal study. And we will actually, we do have plans to promote our products through different channels. But right now we are still actually working out our strategies. But at least the most important thing is have the publications available. But this is a great question. Thank you. Anyone?
Well, we do actually have a few questions from interested authors since we launched the writing contest. So I'm just going to ask Dimitri here, and hopefully that will answer some of your questions too. Let's put him on the spot. All right, so first question, is the competition open to authors from countries other than the US and China?
Yes, it's open to anybody from any country, and we just would like you to specify if you're group 1 or group 2. And from within China it's group 1, and everywhere else it's group 2. Pretty simple.
Great, thank you, Dimitri.
My pleasure.
Next question. I am a native Chinese speaker and fluent English writer. If my piece is written in English, will my application be considered more favorably?
So we accept submissions from either language, not from any language in the world, like we accept them from every country in the world, but either language, and we don't consider one more favorably than the other. You should consider the topic that you're writing on, to think about which is the language that's most appropriate for it. And also consider that we may be publishing only one version entirely, or we may be publishing one version, like the English, for example, and then publish the Chinese later, or if you write in Chinese, we may publish just the Chinese and write the English later, because we're trying to reach our global audience as soon as possible with prompt insights that are relevant at the time. And finally, just bear in mind that you may receive more editorial input if you write in English, and you may want to exercise your English skills. You may want to just be able to write on your resume that you wrote a piece in English, and you may also be interested in getting more editorial input in English. But of course, we'll be working with you to improve your Chinese practice as well as if you write it in Chinese.
Well, I want to add one thing. For example, if some Chinese judges or Chinese professors, they feel more competent, more ready to write in Chinese, they should feel encouraged to submit the Chinese essays for our considerations. They should not think that because of the limited English skill, then they should not even actually consider the competition. No, that's the reason why CGCP is so different. We are a global team. We have a lot of native Chinese speakers, and I myself, I'm truly bilingual. So I enjoy reading actually Chinese submissions to show that they do have the insights, the legal insights, and that's the most important. The substance is the most important. Then
Hold on 1 second.
hold on.
So how do we compete with professionals or judges as a students?
It's not a matter of, we're not comparing the products and especially we're not comparing the authors.
Right.
We're just looking at the writing and what it offers. And in terms of students who are involved in the classroom, who are looking at legal issues that as they're developing and maybe more on the ground and maybe more familiar, they may be able to write much better pieces. In terms of practitioners, they also have similar advantages over judges who may tend to write more broadly and philosophically. Of course, I think that each one has individual, specific, and to a certain extent distinct things to offer, and so we're actually going to be looking to get pieces from each group of people. I mean, again, we don't have a specific quota for judges and a specific quota for students and for practitioners, and by the way, also for professors and from a person that's none of the above. but we're looking to get diversity in the pieces as well. And for example, the piece that I'm writing as just a former legal practitioner and a sort of nobody right now, along with a student in China who's soon to become a practitioner as well at a law firm in China, our piece is very, very different from the judges in content. I mean, the authors are different and the content is different. Again, the writing style is similar to the extent that it's very simple, straightforward, clear, concise sentences, but where the content is different and the approach is very different as well, and that's all right, and that's what we're trying to do. And so you'll see in maybe just a couple of weeks another insight which will show you a different side and different authors, and you'll have a better idea of how we want to get different authors involved in this.
And then, thank you, this is great. Ben, you're being too humble. Your unique background as someone with PhD, okay, with a certain technology or science background, you can actually provide a lot of substantive insights. And then coupled with your JD training, right? So that's why, don't underestimate what you can produce, because it's very important that you develop a certain insight and then you find an angle. Of course, Chinese judges most likely, they will actually draw on their experience in handling similar cases in Chinese jurisdictions. And that's interesting as well, right? So I would encourage you, we will actually take this into account. We try to actually have more diversity. We will just not skew towards a certain group, because our whole purpose is actually, through this conference, we want to actually engage different people, different groups of people in this initiative. Okay. Anyone else? Any other? Yes.
Actually, I'm asking about the word limits for both English version and Chinese version similar, because I think maybe we can convey more information in Chinese in the same words rather than English.
You know what? This is so interesting when you talked about word limits. Well, this is actually more like general guidelines. Will we be so strict? Well, if you actually exceed the word limit a little bit, we'll actually not try. I mean, unless actually, just too many words extra, right? Then it's not fair. But if actually just a little bit over the limit, we will not just say, oh, because of that you're disqualified. We won't be actually. We understand that, yes. In terms of Chinese and English, seems to actually, because of the language, the density of the language, slightly different. But we don't want to actually exercise very strict restrictions. Again, the most important thing is the substance of the piece.
Yeah, just to follow along with that, you'll recall that we gave a range for the word limits as well for each section. And again, as May pointed out, it's guidelines, and just try to bear in mind what you think about the density of the language and whether you should go more towards the higher end of that guideline or the lower end. And it's meant, again, not to penalize you for going over it or below it, but it's meant to guide you in understanding what we mean by concise language.
And even though we call it writing contest, I hope don't look at it so seriously. Relax. This is actually a really fun experience. It should be fun and meaningful experience, okay? And also we really take pride in our work. You will receive, for quality submissions that we designed to actually was like for publication, you really actually will receive a lot of input from us to make sure that you have one piece that you can be very proud of. Put it on your resume and then claim that this is actually one of the CGCP's publications. We hope that you walk away with that feeling. Okay? Anyone else? Ben? Yes?
What's the limit?
Can you repeat the question?
So can we co-author with other students?
Yes, we actually thought about that. So
If
that
so, what's the limit?
you can actually find a partner or two, at most only two, because so at most two you can actually find a partner. For example, if you are actually submitting the application as group 1, then make sure that your partner also belongs to group 1, because we actually really think about, should we actually go beyond the same group? It will be very complicated considering that the number of awards that we have is different. So it's maybe next time when we're in better shape financially, okay? So this time we have to actually have some limitations about that. But we definitely understand that sometimes, just like Dimitri, this experience is actually very good for him because he's actually working with another member in China from Fudan University. And he and, the other member really have a lot of exchange, in terms of legal opinions. So this is, I think, a very good process for each other to learn. So that's why we encourage that as well. Okay. I'm so happy to see so many questions. Scott.
Do you see any potential for machine translation on the horizon at this point in looking for highest quality writing?
Well, this is a very interesting question. We do notice, I personally do notice some improvement in machine translation. But because of the legal terms and also the Chinese, for example, Chinese judgment, they actually are very compact, very dense. One word or a few words already actually capture a lot of unique meaning or a lot of concepts with unique Chinese legal meaning. So that's why I hope, of course, one day we are not that actually relying on human brains. But right now it's too early to say that. I still, however busy I am, I still enjoy all of these brain teasers because I actually am the final person to approve the translations of these technical legal terms because I have to make sure that the translation that we choose is not loaded with foreign legal concepts that don't apply to the Chinese context. We need to make sure that whatever terms we use actually capture accurately the Chinese legal concept. And if actually a very new term, very, very innovative, then that's the reason why you often see a footnote prepared by us to explain the concept and then cite the relevant provisions from Chinese law. So that's actually why this is actually really a fun project for myself as well, intellectually challenging, but very meaningful. Yes.
So, Professor Ming, are you going to select the judges or the panel of judges after you see the submissions? Who's going to decide who gets the
Well, yeah, good questions. So as you know, okay, we have actually advisors. CGCP has a board of about 50 advisors, and that's actually the process. Right now, we would like to actually, this is our plan, because we just announced this rating contest recently. My plan is I hope to actually invite some advisors or maybe some other professionals, my friends from different law firms or different professional groups to engage in the review process. So right now we don't have a very clear plan, but certainly I will be involved. But I hope that I don't need to be too involved because I want to actually free up my time to focus on other things. But we don't know. We still, for example, I don't even know how many submissions we will have.
Depending on the topic.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So for example, if some topics are so specialized and I would like to show deference to those specialists to help us identify the right candidates. Anyone? If not, I would like to actually thank all of you for taking the time to come to this information section. I think all of your questions are very good. And through the video, we will actually keep the global audience involved. Thank you very much.